Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and tonight I'm joined by Tommy Sheridan, where we'll be talking to Livingston band DICTATOR. Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind, DICTATOR. You're back. It seems like a long time ago that you were on, though, eh?
It does. 4 years, I think it is. I couldn't believe it. 2020, everything, the world was shut down the last time we were on, so it's nice to be back when everything's open.
It's good, actually, to look back to that period, because the big worry was, what was the music industry going to look like? That was part of the conversation we had. And you were a burgeoning band. You were still kind of coming together at that point.
Fresh and energetic.
I know. What you've achieved since then is brilliant.
No, it's class, mate. I remember at that point we were really unsure as to what would happen. We were getting loads of conflicting advice and stuff like that. But I think now we're probably seeing what it's done to the music industry now. Back then, I still think there was loads of nobody really knew. So it's fascinating just to see that in that 4-year period, what you've managed to achieve, and still what we've got in front of us. You know what I mean?
Well, we were basically in a stage where we had nothing to lose. For not being able to play gigs, we had pretty much just started. So this gave us an opportunity to work on like different things within the music industry, getting to know people, getting to learn how to make the road a wee bit easier when things opened up again. And it was maybe a good thing for us, I don't know. But I didn't make the last interview. I wasn't here.
You were lockdown, mate.
It's lockdown. This is my first time here, and it's good to be here.
Great to have you, but you went solo in the session that we eventually did as well.
Oh, did I? I remember I was sweating buckets during that. That wee studio was roasting, and I hadn't practiced or anything like that, and I was just like, right, there's something about cameras as well. Like, see, as much as you love playing music, when you have to play it recorded with cameras, like nothing, you're just sitting there going, oh my God, it's like a wee kitten. But
it was a love song you sang.
Was it? Moonlight? Did you like it?
That was the single at the time it was coming out.
Thanks very much.
Mirror, Mirror was another song.
You talked about the process of how you wrote it, and I think you said that unlike some of your other stuff, it took about 10 or 15 minutes just to bring it together. And you know what, it was excellent, because I was expecting it to be less organised, but it was actually lovely. And by the way, you said it at the time, a universal emotion as everybody can buy into it. So, and I thought it was great, mate.
The big thing I'm always interested in, with anything I can't do, I like to find out about the process. I always talk about the process. How's your songwriting process changed in the last 4 years?
So, to be fair, this is actually, we're in the middle of trying to write an album now, which is fascinating, because you don't really think about things like that. Like, I don't know what you guys do with your work, with your life, but you don't often take a step back and then look at how you do it. But see, when you write music, it's something you get constantly kind of questioned on. So you end up, I sometimes think you start like saying you've got a process more than actually, mate, sometimes I just sit down and see what happens. That's genuinely the process. But with the album, what I've started to realise is that I actually work a lot more off like themes and stuff like that. I feel like I need to write a song about something. I don't really have like this incessant want to sit down and just write a song, write a love song, just whatever, see what the mood takes me. I actually kind of like to sit down and say, like, what do I want to, like a story. It's like, what do you want to get across in this song? What's the song about? And then as soon as you almost start to think about some song ideas, that makes the song itself, I don't know, kind of present, if you know what I mean. It just comes, and then you end up doing things with that in mind. But like what we usually do, like the actual process is, and where it's kind of refined from back then, is the production of it has got better. I think when I first used to send demos to you, it was like, I would never let anybody hear them. Like, if you know what I mean, it was just like, it was me like wailing in the background with a guitar. Where there's now actually working with a lot of producers and recording engineers and people that we've kind of been really lucky and blessed to work with, your own skills start to, like, they show you how to do something. So they'll sit and go, like, actually, this is how you do that. And so then suddenly you're able to unlock all these new features. So now what happens is I sit and I do the demos, I write the songs, and I think about, I'm sorry in advance because I'm about to get very, like, I'm an artiste. But if you imagine you make a wee sketch, right? That's what it's like. You sit, you've got the blank canvas, you make a wee sketch. The process of a song is I'll present the sketch, they put the colours in, they change the shape of the picture, and then ultimately when you take it to the studio, that's when you take it from that initial sketch with a wee bit of colour into the final thing that you want it to be. And actually, like a lot of, I don't know if you've seen Fake or Fortune on BBC, where they try and find these lost pieces of artwork and see if it's a genuine. Fascinating, right?
Have they found the Picasso sketch of the Celtic?
No, they didn't. Henrik Larsson. No, but genuinely, it's fascinating because there's this world of like kind of well-known prolific artists that I had no idea what their processes were.
Right.
And that's how they started. They would go and sit there somewhere with a sketch, a tiny wee terrible sketch that they just had an idea, well, I'm going to do this. And then they transfer that onto a bigger and bigger and bigger. And by the time it reaches the canvas that you kind of know, it's been through this massive, rigorous thing where like they've actually made all the amendments, all the changes. And it's not dissimilar to a song. Like actually that's what we do. We start off with this tiny, tiny wee fleeting idea. And 9 times out of 10, they're terrible. Like, it's a song you wouldn't listen to and go, that's great. And we kind of put it through that process. And by the end of it, we're kind of really proud of it. So that's a 10-minute answer.
I find it fascinating. No, I mean, I find the process is song or creating any kind of art fascinating.
Absolutely. What you've just described there, Michael, is an artistic process. I mean, it's art itself. Others may have a different way of doing it, as you've acknowledged that some people may, for instance, work on tunes first, and then they've got chords, and they think, oh, the chords are, I love the chords. Then they put words to the chords, but it sounds as though you do it the other way around. You'll think of a theme, you come up with some words, and then the difference, the transition from when you were younger, is whereas that would have just been you, now you've got a collaborative process, and that collaborative process will be better because you've got more minds.
That's it.
You know?
Ego as well.
But in terms of that working, I think there needs to be a synergy between you and your other band members, because if you're only pulling in one direction, then that artistic process can be difficult. So it sounds as though you've got a good relationship.
I know it is.
Well, like you say, you send over the sketch, and I'm looking at that thinking, what am I meant to add to this sketch? My sketch is already coloured in. But well, me and Michael have been playing bands for years and years, so we kind of know, and like you say, once you kind of get in a rhythm with something, which doing this album we kind of have, we know what we're trying to get to, we know the final sound. Hopefully me, Zach and Alan know what we can add to it as well, that will bring out our little touch in it that will hopefully make it better or change the sound slightly, who knows.
How close are you to the actual album?
I mean, to be fair, we've rattled through quite. I didn't realise I would be as prolific, and I genuinely mean that, not in an egotistical way. I thought people get writer's block, or I always imagine. I don't know if it's real, right? I say that now, maybe in 4 years. And I'll tell you why is that we all work full time.
Yeah,
there is days when I can't be asked. There is days where you just turn up. There is days when the next again day you're phenomenal, right? And I do think it's a bit like that, whereas sometimes you have to force something. Might be rubbish, put it on a scrap pile and move on.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel that that's something that we've kind of learned, where right now with the album especially is we're so open to when it might become. So we've done a lot. I've done all the sketches, basically. The sketches are there. The sketches have came together a hell of a lot quicker than I thought they would. So now I just get to take it easy for the next wee while.
You've talked about writer's block. I always remember an interview I listened to with Irvin Welsh, who says it doesn't exist.
Aye, it's
a mindset, or you can't be arsed.
Aye.
And you just don't do it. And it's all about the discipline of like every day. Every day, I work on a Celtic State of Mind every single day, 365 days a year. No matter what, I will do something relating to Acsom and Celtic. And people think it's an obsession. Well, of course it is.
Yeah, of course.
And we'll talk about Celtic in a wee bit more detail. But over the years, I count this as your third appearance. There was a session, there was an interview, and now we're doing it for Acsom. I've met yourself, Zach, and Michael, either remotely or in the studio.
Yep.
Who have I not met from the band?
Hey, I actually think you've met everybody now, because you had Alan on the first interview.
Right.
Zach's met you separately, and then now you've met Joe.
I'm sure I met you briefly at Las Vegas in Leaf.
Lawyers.
That's right, yes. And I'm glad you brought Las Vegas up. Let's talk a wee bit about Scottish music, because, you know, growing up, you had some great bands from that kind of Postcard Records era, and I was right into Teenage Fan Club, moving on a wee bit. Primal Scream, we spoke about this before. But what intrigued me, particularly the first time we did an interview, was the hotbed of musical talent that was coming from round your way. Obviously, you've got Lewis Capaldi, who's like
Who's that?
a phenomenon. A phenomenon.
A local lad. Nice.
And a trailblazer.
Aye.
He was a trailblazer, wasn't he?
100%.
But I was looking at you guys. I thought he's Mark Sharp and the Bicycle Thieves. I thought Mark's voice is sensational. Love it. The Snot's done loads of good stuff for you
Played
guys.
Hydro as well.
Yeah,
Amazing.
unbelievable. What happens after that then? Does it continue? Is it just a flurry of activity? Is there anybody else to add to the people I've mentioned?
I've always thought there's always been great talent in West Lothian, but it's just taken Lewis Capaldi especially, just taking him to break through, then the Snuts, and then it just kind of draws eyes now in West Lothian. Genuinely, you could go out in Bathgate Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, and there will be 3 or 4 bands playing potentially 2 different venues. There's always great music coming out of there, and it was good to get that bit of recognition, because I feel there was bands that were on the edge, but we maybe didn't know back then. Maybe they were miles away from it, but it's hard to see. Is there more to come? I don't know, because where we used to play gigs when we were younger, they're all closed. There's not as many places you can go and play now, so there might be bands in their bedrooms working on stuff, but not that I've heard so far yet, but I'm hoping more will come in.
That's a tragedy. You know, when there's a venue, right, and it's basically given a platform for up-and-coming bands of any description in any village or town or city in Scotland, and they disappear. Where's the platform? I honestly, I think it's a tragedy, and not enough is done to save them either, Michael.
No, and see, one of the things we chatted about was the state of the music industry, right? That's the state of the music industry just now. And I kind of hate being generalistic when you talk about an industry, because it's not, we don't speak on behalf of bands like the Snuts. Like, they're in very different positions, but even them have their own struggles. Where they're struggling on tour, they're struggling to kind of, the commitment that they've got is they're full-time musicians, and even they're like, this is a nightmare. How are you supposed to want to do this thing? For us, we're obviously a lot more into the grassroots, and to be honest with you, there's a lot less grassroots than there ever has been. Which I don't want to paint too stark a picture, because I do believe that there is a kind of continuum of this stuff. You go through curves all throughout history. Like, we've just came through a really tough economic time. Everybody understands that. The world shut down, and now we're starting to kind of pick up the pieces, but we're probably starting to see it now, where we're actually starting to see a lot of things like redundancies, and all these sectors that were once booming are now starting to feel it without getting too deep. But music industry is one of the hardest hit, because now actually there was a boom of people wanting to go out. The world was shut down and people were like coiled springs coming out. So then what would happen is all these venues would take off. You would open a pub by that, I'll get some live music in. And then slowly but surely people have stopped having, 1, the amount of money to spend on those things that they once did, but 2, they won't, because actually they're not as busy as they used to be. And so what's happening is these businesses that are struggling, who are putting the platform for all these young independent artists, are starting to close. And then suddenly, as you say, where is your platform? How do you bring people through? And even for us, like, I touched on it a few times, we're working full time. Every single one of us, there is no chance, probably in the next 2 to 3 years, that we'd be able to get a sustainable income from music. And I mean, like, a sustain as enough to have a family, enough to do all of that. And ultimately, that's scary, but also freeing, because we're not doing it for money. Right? It was a privilege to be able to even be on this podcast talking about our wee tunes, right? Class. But it's scary if you're younger and you maybe had this mad appetite to go and play in front of your pals and be cool, and you know what I mean? Like, that's ultimately what drives you, 11, 12-year-old. Now, where do you play? And that's a shame.
Well, we were lucky. We were, obviously no one's great when they're starting out, but we had loads of great pubs. We had loads of places you can go and learn.
Cut your teeth.
And there's not that anymore. Like, the smallest venue you could probably play now is Sneaky Pete's, but I still think that brings on a lot of pressure for a young band, because it is like you're going into the city and that, and it's, I don't know, but it's a bit of a shame.
There are parallels between football and music, Tommy.
Right.
You think about the grassroots that we talk about all the time on this show, and the fact that the platforms, i.e. the facilities, aren't there, or it costs too much for kids to play football. And it's 2 of the biggest things for me when you look at Scottish culture, music and football. And they need to thrive, Tommy, and people need to invest in the facilities and in the venues as well for the bands like Dictator and all the other great bands we've mentioned.
I think you guys have to really adapt, and it must be dead difficult, because you and I know I'm older than you, Paul John, quite significantly older.
Slightly.
But the point is, growing up, the music industry was much more identifiable in that you bought singles, you bought LPs, you loved the album covers. Top of the Pops was a desire for people to go on. The weekly #1 show, the Radio 1 show that you weren't supposed to take.
You couldn't have missed that
Right,
on a Sunday.
you couldn't miss it, and there was competition, and there was, you talk about it on the Friday at school, who's going to be #1 this week, blah, 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 blah. Now, I can't begin to think of the music and how iTunes and wee videos on TikTok, and it's just so diversified. And now, by the way, there's another way to look at that, and that there's probably more opportunities
More than ever.
because there's more platforms,
Yeah.
right? Whereas back in the day, the platforms were very, very reduced. I remember one band, don't know if you ever remember them, they'd been doing in the record books because they were the only band ever to sell out the Apollo without ever being signed up. And it was a band called Scheme. And for most people, well, actually some of our elder viewers will be like, oh, aye, Scheme, I remember Scheme. They were massive for Easterhouse, right? Absolutely massive. Really great talent. And they sang, see what you're talking about stories. That was gritty stories. And everybody thought they're going to make it. Combination of problems, some fights at the gigs, and somebody gets stabbed at a gig, and the whole problem was that it attached itself to them. But I thought to myself, they've got that one route, which is getting signed by a big label. See if they had the option of social media.
Yep.
Because their music was so gritty and popular, they could have had a much better opportunity. So hopefully you guys will adapt, but make sure that you use all these platforms.
That's the game. Right? And like the thing for us is we're enjoying playing the game, right? That's the game. We're in it and we're enjoying it. It's a shame because the game's changed for when we were younger. So actually a lot of the advice we would give to grassroots artists who are starting out is different now. Because actually maybe didn't bother going playing in a pub. Go and start firing covers on your Instagram. Yep.
Tell us the story again about how you were actually blessed that somebody collapsed, because that allows you to get into the Lazio game.
Oh, to be fair, aye. So I actually forgot about that. I was at I got my phone nicked as well, by the way.
Well, in Lazio?
In Lazio, aye, in Rome. I know. That was one of the best nights. That was amazing. That because what we done is we got the bus. You felt like a criminal, right? I don't know. Like this is one thing about sometimes the life I've got, where I've came from, etc. And like even when I speak to some friends who are into the rugby, right? Like a big ta-da, like who had day out, whatever. You go to the football, and the same people are treated as if you are the problem, right? So we goes into Rome, and we were just honestly, like the way they put the buttons and all that, chucking you on the buses, putting you out, and I was just like, you felt like you can understand how, especially if people had a few drinks and stuff like that, how it can kick off. Because you're not doing anything. Right? You're literally just there. And I remember they warned everybody, if you don't have a ticket, don't go. And I'm not advocating this at all, but of course we went. We were sitting there, we were going like, well, might as well just so. And I remember there was like, my mum and dad and all that were like, don't dare go, because there was warnings out, because the Lazio fans, the ultras are mental, they'll stab you, they didn't care. And I'm like, that's fine. So me and my mate were like, right.
And I'm like, that's fine.
No, so the two of us went on the bus, and genuinely, like, we were walking up, and I remember the bus dropped you off. And you were in the Lazio Ultra Heartland, like the bit like where there's a like notorious like some gang problems and stuff like that. Same as Glasgow. There's bits where that are bad and stuff like that. And I remember there was a boy just with 2 tickets up, and they had your unique reference and all that on it, and he'd scribbled them out, and they were like, if it's scribbled out, you're not getting in. And so the boy was like, how much you want? He was like, 50 quid. And I was like, that's a gamble. That's a gamble. Willing to pay 50 quid for that. So 50 quid each gave him. And then we walked up. We were at 2 separate ends. And as I got to the gate, there was 2 Italian policemen. And they went, where's your unique referencing? And I remember I was like, my mate in the pub, he scribbled it out because he was trying to be funny. And I was like, that's pretty good. Like, that's quite quick thinking. And he was like, nah. And he was like, stepped to the side, brought me in. 2 Italian policemen came in. And a boy who was absolutely blotted just came in and collapsed. He just collapsed right in front of him. The 2 policemen just went, away you go. And I was like, and honestly, it was like all the lights in the Lazio stadium just lit up. And I was like, oh my God. And then obviously at the end, and Cham, he done that at the last minute winner. And I was on my back and everything. It was one of the best nights of my life. And then my phone got nicked after it.
So what you've given us is a method to get into games. Totally. Have a decoy. Make sure the claps.
Ignore all police advice and family. Exactly, no. But it was great. It was one of the best nights I've ever been in a lady. But see, every time I go, I try and just see if there'll be tickets. Go to Valencia. They're so closely controlled. It's so hard now just to turn up. You're better just going and enjoying the festivities and then watching it somewhere in a pub.
The annoying thing for me is the fan is the lifeblood of the game, right? And then when, particularly in Scotland, if you're an away fan, more often than the home fans, you are treated like this criminal undercurrent that they don't really want to be at the game. They make it difficult for you to be at the football, and I find that astonishing. You're talking about European football. Behind us is a Champions League trophy. Tommy's sitting proudly with yet another medal. Tommy, you're trying to outdo us here on Acsom.
Well, you know, you did bring your trophy the last time. And
then you complained that it was too wee.
Although it was small, it was very powerful.
Although it was
very
small.
powerful. So, we're recording this on a Monday. We had the Champions League walking football tournament yesterday, Sunday, in Toryglen in Glasgow. Teams from all over Scotland, so they all win their leagues.
Right.
So they all had to win the leagues in the east of Scotland, north of Scotland, west of Scotland, south of Scotland. All came together, 6 teams, all the winners, and 5 games. We won 3 and drew 2. We're the only unbeaten team there. We won the Champions League. So there's the cup, there's the plate, lovely plate, lovely plate. Look at that, lovely wee plate.
Beautiful.
And believe it or not, that was over 50s.
What?
On Weddings Day, I'm playing in the over 60s. So I could be having another cup in our next recording. But listen, everybody thanks you, Paul John, for giving a wee bit of a platform to the walking football. It's football for all jeans.
No, listen. Maybe Acsom will sponsor you something.
Yeah, that'd be good.
You brought to mind talking about the kind of route of there's a band, let's get known, let's release singles, and let's get on, mainstream channels. That was always the kind of goal for bands. We had Alan McGee in here about 2 years ago, and he said relatively it was pretty easy. He said, if I had a band, there was 4 things. One of them was an NME cover, one of them was a Melody Maker cover, one of them was getting them on top of the pops. There was 4 different things. I can't remember what the 4th one is, probably radio play somewhere. He goes, and if I did that, I'd have a top 20 record. He knew he would get a top 20 record. He says, now I'm not quite sure what the permutation is and how you actually find that route to get a record that charts or get your music played on mainstream radio. So it is very difficult. So on the one hand, you've got loads of other opportunities, but on the other hand, it's not as filtered as it used to be, is it?
No, but also, so we actually rely on those guys a lot for advice. So there's a lot of people we've been lucky enough to meet in the background who have advised us, but also have advised us on how they've done it that long ago, for instance, right? So exactly that. It's like, well, if you do these things. So weirdly, if we were a band 20 years ago, we'd have top 10 singles all the time because we know the game. We understand what you needed to do to be successful in that. What's actually fascinating now is that it's so open. There's a lot more platforms, a lot more opportunities, but no one's quite sure what the right one is because it's like in its infancy. And so, it's hard because we have to take the advice of guys like that when they give it, but also couple that up with maybe some emerging artists who are going through different channels. For instance, Spotify. Spotify is a huge, big thing that never existed before. Mm-hmm. And actually, some of the artists and stuff who we've spoken to who have contacts within Spotify, or maybe you're signed to a label that has a really good connection with Spotify, and what they'll say is, I tell you what, you sign with us, we'll get you on the New Music Friday playlist. And you'll be everywhere. So when you log into your Spotify, 9 o'clock Friday morning, you see my face, right? That's the stuff now that if you get that gives you the platform for your artist to then press on. Yeah. But it's just a different landscape now. It's all about streaming. It's all about this. I think the difficulty for us is probably before, you could have been a wee guy in the mix of that. You could have been unsigned. You could have made your own lane. You could have fought through. And don't get me wrong, there is bands like the Ratings who have went on tour with who have that community, and it's amazing. But actually now there's a bit of a monopoly amongst some of the bigger record labels, some of the bigger streaming platforms, some of the bigger social media platforms as well. They also have a monopoly over it. When you couple that up with a Live Nation Ticketmaster, that's a huge, big ongoing debate, whether it's morally right for them to be able to charge for tickets and stuff like that. It's kind of really interesting because then you start to see this link. And if you were to take, the top 50 artists in the world right now, and then start putting Are they with Live Nation? Are we the Ticket
Yeah.
Master? Are we the this label? Are we the this? It's fascinating because then you start to see this, and you're like, oh, so really, your method of success here is to go in to this. Difficulty for us as we're learning is they're not necessarily benefiting out of that. So actually, they're the highest profile, but they're not the ones who are reaping the reward of that. The machine behind them and as part of them, they're reaping the reward of that. So where would you rather be? Would you rather be somewhere in the middle, getting all of the reward and enjoying what you're doing, or would you rather be going for that, yeah, I'm the main man thing?
It's kind of gone back to that music industry thing where they were treating the artists like slaves, etc. And the industry was getting young artists into debt. And obviously then they were never out of that debt, so they'd need to record another album. One thing I was going to ask you, because I'm not sure myself what the answer to this is, back in the day I'm old enough to remember when the music video became a thing, right? It became a big thing. I remember staying up, and this is true, staying up to watch the premiere of Michael Jackson's Thriller.
God, I was just going to mention
It was massive.
I
was
was
an
I was at
event.
uni at the time. I was.
I remember
that?
Robbie-
Oh, it was,
see
it was a Friday night, and everybody was talking about it. And you know, this was huge. I think midnight or something like that. It was absolutely huge. I remember it.
It was an event.
Who's Michael Jackson?
We know who 50 Cent is.
Exactly.
Snoop Dogg, they're all Celtic
50
fans.
Cent.
But the point I was going to make there is then the music video became massive, and that then created the music TV channels. And then when music sales, physical sales died out a wee bit, I felt that the music videos, because the budget wasn't there, kind of took a nosedive. It was all about, streaming the audio. Now that we're getting to the point where it's about influencing on socials and all that, the music videos make a comeback. And you guys are very good at that. You are on it when it comes to the music videos. I don't know if you're doing that because it's a thing that you've decided to and you're aware of it, or if it's just something that's part of your creativity.
I think if you've got to do a music video, like you say, they're not really that important, especially at our level. So if we've got to do one, we kind of want to make it watchable. Like, well, what's going to get people watching to the end and maybe enjoy the song more? So if we're doing it, we want to do something that we would like to see as well. Like you say, I mean, you'll see, I think we've got, maybe 3 videos?
Probably 5 or 6, including some of the ones we done earlier. But
like, aye, I'm trying to think. We've got the Rubik's Cube one and Henrik Larsson. I'd say they're the
ones we paid the most for.
Aye.
Right, but aye.
But like you say, you'll see, stream-wise will not do that well, but I think there is still a bit of space in the music world for videos.
But it's the best way for us to convey what we're trying to do. Best way for us to convey the theme of the song is for a video.
Yeah,
Because then you get inside a wee bit of our heads as to what the song's about. And actually, that's a fascinating aspect. With like something like Rubik's, it's just a mishmash, you like chaos.
Different
But
games.
it was great because that's when you get to see a wee bit of our personality. And we don't actually get a reward from it. We don't bump up our strings. We don't really get, the most you'll get is little snippets. Right? See, when you're all dressed up and you're doing the video, that's your time to record. Like, we've got a gig coming out soon, got the EP coming out soon. Because then when you release the video, you've got a wee bit of a moment there that you can latch onto and say, oh, listen, guys, this tune's coming out, whatever. And I actually think we just do the videos because 1, we enjoy them. 2, we grew up watching videos. Same. It's purely probably nostalgic.
Yeah.
And thirdly, all the good things you get from them are what people advise you to do. So they would say, don't bother spending $1,000 on a video. Go and just do the wee snippets. Just spend half an hour on your iPhone and just say, listen. And you will genuinely get a reward for that. But when you're doing it for the reward, you're not really doing it because you want to, then, are you? You're doing it because you think you have to.
Right.
So,
the biggest video we've ever done on a Celtic State of Mind was the music video for The Glory and the Dream.
nice.
Biggest, the most viewed
Did
video.
you enjoy doing it?
I loved it because it gave me the opportunity to be a director of a music video.
Aye, it's
Or
fascinating.
pretend to be the director
No.
of a music
No
video.
pretending.
I'm like, oh, do the Bruni outside Celtic Park. Paul Sheridan does the Bruni. But that's done well for us. But I think it's because it's a kind of the diversity of us making a music video. You know, a podcast then going over that barrier and making a music video. And we're going to do more. There's plans to do more next year. But you mentioned Henrik Larsson, right? Now, Henrik Larsson's a player. I watched him his entire Celtic career. Did you know he scored his first and last goals at Celtic Park against Celtic?
That was a crossword question.
There you go. There's a wee pub
Is that not
quiz
5-1?
question for you, right?
Super scoreboard.
early doors under Wim Jansen, he scores an OG in
first
Europe.
goal.
And the last goal he scores is for Barca against us, right? Tell us your memories of Larsson, your introduction to Henrik Larsson, and we'll move on to why you've recorded a song in homage to the great man.
There you go.
My first memories properly Henrik Larsson. So I can remember the dreadlocks, but I wouldn't say it was until Martin O'Neill coming in. Maybe that treble winning season, that's when we would have been like 9, 10-year-old, when football really was becoming something that you really loved. But it was just brilliant. But the thing is, I think that full team, not just Henrik Larsson in particular, that full team at that time was one of the best Celtic teams. I don't know if it was just because of what age we were as well, but for Henrik Larsson, it was just great. It was scored lots of goals and we loved that.
Yeah, I think as well, see, for us, like growing up in school, I think everybody, or at least everybody that we know, is just a field footballer, right? Because that's all we wanted to do growing up was be
The
a
only
footballer.
non-field footballer in here is the guy winning the
Champions
Champions
League.
League. The guy winning the trophies.
I still got a wee bit nervous when I came in. I said, a Champions League winner in front of me.
I'm better a full footballer than anybody.
No, but genuinely, that was like growing up. He was the idol. He was the guy. He was the guy on the playground that you were like, this is the man. Doesn't go any further than him. When you were going to bed at night, you're like, I wish I was Henrik Larsson. That's who he was to us. That he was like, if it didn't matter, like there was other teams other players in the team, but of course you would pick a few outliers.
There was one player I would say I would maybe put on level with Henrik Larsson, with who I wanted to be.
Lubo Rakic.
The one time I got a name and number on the back of a Celtic top. To be fair, I never got Maravchik. I got Murty, my second name, 25.
I actually remember you when we were in like primary school. I always remember you saying Lugo was better because he could play with 2 feet.
Who was the player out of Dictator then? Who's the best?
Joe.
Player? It was you then, Joe,
Joe
yeah?
was the best player.
I didn't go to any level. Like, I'd never played pro or semi-pro or whatever, but when I was younger, that was my life basically up until, when did we start the band? Fourth year at school, and then I started really liking the music. And then it kind of got to that point when I was like 16-year-old and I just wasn't enjoying football anymore. Like, I liked the training. I didn't like the games. I was getting to that point where, see, when it was a Saturday or Sunday, and you would look outside and it'd be a bit frosty and you're just waiting on the phone to ring. It's like, the game's been abandoned. I'm like, yes. And then that's when I knew, like football's no for me. I get that, I'll play fives and whatever, but...
was it the pressure of the games, do you think?
No, I think I should have maybe moved teams.
Right.
When I was younger, I didn't quite know, but I really didn't enjoy the games. No, the pressure. I just didn't like it. I wasn't really like... I think when you were kind of getting to that age, 16, and every boy's trying to be the hardest, and I was just a quiet wee guy. I didn't get involved in any of that, so I was like, I just want to play football.
You were good at tricks as well. That was you were quite skillful in the ball. Like, I was at the age where it's still fun to do. Again, it was at that notion of just like, stop doing that.
It's I remember
Keep it tight, play 4-4-2, just pass the ball.
When we were growing up, it was always, when I was like 12 or 13, our coach saying, the fittest team wins every game. We wouldn't touch a football. They would just have us running, sit-ups. Remember the 2 inches thing with your back?
Yeah.
Well, didn't get me wrong. Like,
What
we
did
were all
you
wee
call that?
tanks.
That was hell.
And we just called it 2 inches. And then, I don't know if there was another name for it, but that's what I can remember doing.
8-year-olds running about with 6-packs.
Hey,
What was
imagine
all
that.
about?
What's the point of that? Just teach them. But you genuinely were really good. Outside of the back, like in the band, sorry, it was definitely you. It would go you, then me, then Alan, then Zach. That's the order of merit.
What's the positions though? We need to know the order of merit. What's the positions? Where did you play?
The Lubo. I would always
Lubo, right.
either centre mid. I wouldn't
Need that
like
running back defensive nonsense. Nah.
I wouldn't like going out wide too much, but I would do it. But probably evolved more into a Chavi myself.
I like it.
Nice.
I like
Chavi.
it.
Chavi and Lugo.
Michael, what were you like?
Yeah, all right. I'm left
Midfield general.
No, I was left-footed. So that just meant with who my coaches were, it was left back or left mid. Yeah. I played left mid for a couple of games, and that's brutal, especially at that level because you're no up. You're not getting told to stay up and try and score. You're getting told to be a left back as well. And I just remember being burst. And I used to carry a wee bit of weight when I was younger. I was the level below you at football. I did used to play on a Saturday and stuff like that, and I hated it, but I could never understand the seriousness of it, right? And I just had this real thing of like, some of these guys were acting as if this was life and death. And at the age of...
What's more important than that?
Yeah, I'm saying that, exactly. But I remember at the age of 12, 13, there was a boy just shouting at me, and he was this 40-year-old man. And I remember at the age of 12 going, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I just remember I just stopped and went, nah, never mind. Because you're shouting about something, it's like, you've got genuine anger issues, and the way you're taking this out is by coaching a team on a Saturday. Go away. I could never buy into the seriousness of it, and that was a genuine thing. I actually think it's helped the music though, by the way, like that kind of unseriousness about it all. But I could never buy into the seriousness of football. Could never understand, and I understand when people take the defeat, and you need those kind of gladiators who are only focused and obsessed with that thing in order to win football matches. But as a human being, a balanced human being, I'm like, actually, there's a far greater...
The minute you're not enjoying it, that's the same with anything in life, really, isn't it?
This is dead nostalgic, but because you're talking about as a kid at school, and you all wanted to be Henrik Larsson. What was it, Dalglish for you? We all wanted to be Henrik.
I see, that's cool.
We all wanted
That
to
is
be
cool. That is cool. Like, aye.
He was our idol, a good-looking guy, but he was just a magician. And I can remember I was in Millport. We bought the Evening Times that night. It was the front page. 440,000, 1977, 440,000 going to Liverpool.
Strange transfer.
Broke my heart.
I never understood that. Just go to $500,000. Come on.
I couldn't believe that this was such a disaster for us. Kenny Dalglish.
That would have been life-ending. See, like at that age as well, you'd have been gutted. And that was the same. See, when Henrik Larsson left, we were in bits. We were genuinely in bits, because we were at that. It was like, no, our whole world was that Celtic.
To be
team.
fair, the funny thing is, for me, was that an unlikely hero stepped forward, because Dixie Deans then became my idol.
Nice.
Because Dixie Deans was kind of not your typical footballer. He didn't look like a footballer, didn't look athletic, but he was as strong as an ox. He came with a reputation, having played, I think, with Motherwell, and anybody that scores hat-tricks as much as Dixie did, hat-trick in the 72 final, hat-trick in the 74 final, absolutely brilliant. And the 72 one, I've said this before, but the 72 one, I don't know if you recall it. You wouldn't recall it, because
I can recall it.
We were minus
videos.
21.
I've seen the videos.
But what happens is, we all get let away for school early, right? 70 primary school, you're beauty, we get home early, because Celtic were playing into Milan, and your man Dixie, we drew in Milan. The return leg was at Parkhead. Semi-final, European Cup, goes to penalties. Dixie blasts out of the bar. We get put out, right? Cup final is within days, and everybody say, "Oh, he'll be dropped. He'll be dropped." Big jock played him.
Psychology.
Scored a hat trick. There's a guy that knows these players, isn't it? Absolutely brilliant. So Dixie sort of replaced Kenny for us, just because of his prolific goals, and the other one was Bobby Lennox, who was just continual, just loved him.
Evergreen. The interesting thing is, I can understand Larsson, because I was the same. I seen him, Dalglish, looking back, obviously part of the Quality Street gang, but now my wee lad and all his mates, I always say, who's your favourite player? Kyogo. There's something about Kyogo that attracts just that young fan.
Good, that's good.
And I don't know if it is, there's a wee caricature about him. I mean, the goal he scored against Hibs at the weekend, off the scale. The technique was off the scale. But again, we need to talk about it, because we interviewed Stuart Braithwaite a couple of years back, and I loved his Zidane score that he did for that documentary, and I said, if you were to do a score for a Celtic player, who would the player be? And his answer was Lubo. You guys have decided to record a song called HL7.
Yes.
The first thing I'm going to ask you, right, is at this stage of your musical journey, is it a risk to do that? Because you're from Scotland. Wherever you go in Scotland, you're dividing your fan base into two, right? Is it a risk?
So I'll genuinely, right, we've been touring up and down the UK. I've been lucky enough in the last couple of years to play. We're playing Isle of Wight this year. We had some amazing music festivals, right? And also where I work with a lot of people based in London, right? It has been fascinating for someone who's grown up in this goldfish bowl was the term, but actually it's just so woven in the Celtic or Rangers, or like I didn't know that a world existed outside of that, right? What I've found is it is a risk up in Scotland, but outside of Scotland, no one really cares, right? And I know that's no one really cares. Obviously there is a divide, but there is a risk with where we're at, except for the fact that we're just being authentic. So what do I do? And listen, it's actually my dad, right? My dad will probably be listening to this. He is your classic Celtic da, right? It doesn't matter if we've won 6-0, he's fuming. Should have been 7, right? Kyogo missed that sitter. He needs to watch himself. Oh, this, right?
Your dad on Acsom.
Oh no, you didn't. I'll not be able to come back. He was ready to sack Brendan Rodgers last year, like so multiple times. And I'm just like, Dad, we just won a treble. Like, you know, like I know that was a year. It was a year after that, after Orange. But anyway, but basically, it is a risk. My dad would always say, just keep stum. That's how he's been brought up. Don't wear your colours on your sleeve. Just keep your head down. And especially when you try to, attract public attention and you want to get a generalist kind of person come in and like your tunes, then you sing about divisive things. Don't put a mark on yourself. And we've just disregarded every bit of advice because we love Celtic. Yeah. So genuinely for us, he was an idol growing up. And it would be quite a shame if we couldn't sing about the things that were relevant to us because we were worried about what people had to say about it. Right? And in actual fact, none of the lyrics in that song are directly slating another team or like anything about Celtic directly. So you can still enjoy the tune. You might not like the name, but that's us. And unapologetically so. So,
right. Has Henrik Larsson heard the tune?
I don't know.
We can get that tune to Henrik.
If you could, like, genuinely, see if you could get it to him. That would be outstanding because, like, genuinely, the song, the actual beat and the kind of way I say about themes, right? Started off with a theme of let's write a song about Henrik Larsson. So where do you start? And for me, it's the beats per minute, the BPM of a song, right? And it's got that swagger. I think it's about between 90 and 100 has this kind of like, it's just like a weird wee swagger about it. And that's where we started. And then it was like the big bass, as this big bass come in and I'm like, that's just got that appeal of like, I know I'm good and that sort of thing. And then it just started slowly, it's all about adversity. And remember when he broke his leg?
Oh my God.
But ultimately, I think that tears in the heartstrings that every Celtic supporter growing up is when Henrik Larsson broke his leg. And I was at Parkhead when he came his first game back, and I remember people were so worried. We were so worried it was going to hurt because I actually think he got taken off.
That's right.
And everybody thought, oh, here we go. But it's about that. It's about being kicked in 1,000 times and then still coming back and facing that. And that's where it kind of slowly went from. So if you could let Henrik hear the song, he doesn't have to like it, but it would be nice if he could hear it.
We will send it to Henrik. I had the great pleasure fairly recently, of talking to the physiotherapist, Brian Scott, who came to Celtic with Billy McNeil in the 1980s, and he was still there when Henrik broke his leg. And he was a massive part, and Henrik Larsson says this, a massive part in him actually not just regaining fitness, but being better and actually, firing on after that into a better player, both for Celtic and Sweden. And he spoke about his determination as a player, and I always found that incredible. Now, I don't know how he's going to cover it in his recent book. I've not read his book yet. Hopefully Santa will bring me that for Christmas. But the mental strength to come back from it. I mean, when I wasn't there, I wasn't in Lyon, but I was watching it like everybody else at home, and I thought it was his shin guard poking out his sock. I thought it was his shin guard. And I can think about it right now. It was horrendous. But Brian Scott told me the story about that like focus of Henrik Larsson. And I don't know if this has been made public or whatever, but obviously it happens at a certain point in the game and he gets rushed away to hospital, right? And the players are shell-shocked. You can tell. No wonder, right? You can tell they're absolutely shell-shocked. By the time they finish the game, get showered, jump in the coach, go to the airport and get into the aeroplane, Henrik Larsson's on the plane. Larsson's on the plane. They're all strapped up. He's just sitting there waiting to get home. Straight off the bat, almost as soon as it's happened, he's thinking about recovery. And he's not sitting there thinking, oh, we'll be tied, this and that. He's sitting there, the leg's in plaster, horrendous leg break, and he's already thinking about his recovery. And I remember the game where he came back, and it was Kenny Dalglish's last game talking about King Kenny. ironically enough, Kenny Dalglish is in charge when Larsson comes back to play the final game of that season against Dundee United, and he comes on the park, and you're just thinking, right, what's going to happen when he gets smashed? And he does in that game against Dundee United, and he gets back up, and the crowd, you can just feel this energy in the crowd. But I agree with you, it wasn't until Mark O'Neill comes in that you see the true value of Henrik Larsson, who he was a world-class player, and I don't mind saying that. Anybody could try and disagree with me. I would argue the toss. He was world-class when he was at Celtic. So we're going to make sure that that song is heard by the great man.
Nervous, man. He better like it. He didn't go off it. It's okay.
Absolutely, get it over to him. There's loads of other things happening. I remember talking to you guys, and it was about aspirations and all that kind of thing. And what I love seeing about a band, some of the bands we had in for session, we had 73 bands. That we had a run, a session, 73. And some of them have gone on to great things, right? You know, Rianne Downey, I remember coming in, lovely girl for Bells Hill, talking about her aspirations. Next thing you know, she's singing with Paul Heaton. She's on a record with the Coral. It's like unbelievable. Brilliant.
Amazing to see.
Brooke Combe. I think she signed with Ireland 2 weeks after she was on our show. Not today we were being on our show.
I see it was.
I love Mark Sharp's voice. I think he's a tremendous talent. There's loads of them that were great, but there's other ones, mate, who fell by the wayside and they're no longer together. So even the fact that you can come and talk to us 4 years later, you're winning.
Aye.
Right? I loved on your socials seeing that it was one of these things where you're basically engaging with your fan base and you're saying, right, we want to go to New York. This is how we're going to do it. Talk us through that process.
Well, so we've been lucky enough, right? So we're going to New York next year. We had a few. Music's a very strange business to be in. Call it a business, and actually, all it does is it fools you into thinking you're better than you are. Ego can take over 100%, right? And it's just one of those things where it's the equivalent of playing in a Sunday League team, but then maybe coming on as a substitute for Celtic against a Dundee United or something, right? And you suddenly think you're this. I'm a player. I'm a player now. And then the following week, you're right back to playing in a muddy field and whatever, right? That's music to us. Because for what happens is we'll play these outstanding gigs, meet these phenomenal people, and the following week, we're right back to where we are, which is a level. And the one thing you've got to remain is we are consistently averaging up. And you have to keep your eyes so focused on that. So actually for us, I remember speaking to Joe when we first started, and Joe said, success to me is playing at a gig outside of the Central Belt. So within the first couple of months, we had a gig in Newcastle with Mark Sharp and the Bicycle Thieves. That was us. We made it. That was our goal. Then it was, it'd be brilliant if we could do a UK tour. We've done a UK tour. We did have this thing about Europe, and to be fair, we played Dublin, so that did tick the box. But we wanted to properly go across the sea and go to Europe. We just had a gig in Valencia. And each time you get these wee notches, you change and you go. One of the things Zach and me always said, how phenomenal it would be to play New York City. That was our because that's our vibe. We just love the idea of being on like a rooftop and Lower East Side or something like that with the city in the back. And I remember we watched Churches. I don't know if you know that band Churches with a V in the middle, but basically with them, they actually moved to New York, and that's where they actually cut a lot of their teeth. They got signed up here and then they moved over, and some of their gigs over there were outstanding. So we always had it in our targets to get over to America, specifically New York. So this festival pops up. No hope in hell of us being accepted to play it, and Zach just pops him a wee message. How you doing? We're this band, blah, 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 sent the music. Nah. 3 months later, we love it. We want you here.
Brilliant.
And so suddenly we're like, oh, now we hate to pay to go to New York. Now all the logistics comes in. And it doesn't matter. You're so surprised that, like, if you were to think of a million reasons not to do something, you're never going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
See, the moment you get something, here's a million reasons to do it.
Yep.
So ultimately for us is we had to go back to the drawing board and say, it's actually quite entrepreneurial, if I'm honest with you, because you have to basically try and work out ways to drum up investment. But we hate selling stuff. We hate it. So I just does it feel slimy kind of being that guy, like, you know what I mean? And ultimately for us is that's any money we get into the band goes back to the band, and it will be like that for a while. That's why I say we'll not be able to draw an income for a while, because the things we want to do cost money. So even if you turn over a decent amount, you're going to have to chuck it right back into the band. It has to be with that greater goal in mind of being able to achieve what you want to achieve. So we had to go, boys, what are we going to do? And ultimately what we did do is we spoke to our fan base. We said, what ideas do you guys? We run a Patreon. which is actually our kind of closest followers. They pay like X amount per month. It's not much. Again, it's a fair amount. And we do loads of content for them. We'll do covers. That's where, you know how the covers on Instagram? I hate doing that because I think it's a bit soulless. If you're on our Patreon though and you ask me to cover a song and you're paying for a Patreon, it's completely different because then actually I'm engaging with you. And actually there's a transaction there where I feel like you want this and I want to do it for you. And it's just a nice community. So we asked them and they went, what about this? What about this? Why don't you get a fundraising gig? Why don't you do this? And so ultimately we were just like, right, let's just do this, and this. So we're playing Sneaky Pete's in a couple of weeks' time. And to be fair, the tickets have shifted a lot for that. People were buying tickets and saying, just put them back on sale. And stuff like that, you're like, this is phenomenal. We started doing hoodies and t-shirts. We had an idea in mind as to how many we were wanting to sell. Within 2 days, they were gone, the whole lot of them. And we were like, whoa, this is phenomenal. So we'll probably do another run if we can justify it. But it's just amazing because it feels like people are buzzing for you, right? And it's mad to just be, I don't know, it's just a good vibe, isn't it?
No,
It's like so that's the thing about a community and engaging with people is you might have like 100,000 followers or stuff like that, but if you're not engaging with them, if they're no real people, if they're just a number, it's a shame. We've not got like 100,000 followers, but the followers we do have are amazing. Like, you know what I mean? They're actually people who are involved and want to be part of it. So yeah, so we're going to New York in March. We're right underway with the process here. We obviously have to go and get, cross the T's, dot the I's and stuff like that. But the funding that we've managed to get from our fans is basically going to pay it, which tell me that's no success. You know, and that's success. I mean,
So I love that you've got a great vibe about you, but maybe you've got a lot of energy there, mate.
it's just the coffee.
Oh, it's dead positive. I just love that. Even that wee expression you used about the entrepreneurial side of it and feeling a wee bit uncomfortable selling things, right? And I'm not
Like for the nerves under the video.
But think about it. We've talked about it, Paul John. You've got that experience. You've been in
Goes
retail.
back to when I had my paper shop.
You had your paper shop at 21. Absolutely brilliant. Not knocking you whatsoever. But I know what you
some
mean.
amount of Buckfast. My God, honestly, I'm talking
So,
40,
Scotland's
40
dog
boxes.
problems arose.
I'm glad you
in
made
his
some money
paper
about
shop.
it.
40 boxes a weekend of Buckfast.
Nice.
Could have stayed open 24 hours a day.
I just think that's a great wee story that your fans are helping you progress. Absolutely.
So
brilliant.
lucky.
And you're
Genuinely.
taking them where the journey is fantastic.
There's a positive aspect to the new musical scene then, the industry as it is now. Back in the day, what kind of bands was I into maybe at school, the Charlatans, Oasis? You couldn't get near them, you couldn't communicate or engage with them, whereas now, people that buy your music can engage with you.
Aye.
So that's a massive positive. And there's loads of things that are wrong about the industry.
Yeah.
That's not one of them.
No.
The fact that even now, Liam can go on Twitter and actually engage with his fans.
Good and bad.
know.
Exactly, yeah.
I just wouldn't do it in case it went the wrong way. In case
It can get overwhelming at times. You're probably the same, is that some people can pour their heart out to you and stuff, and you're like, listen, I'm not equipped to deal with that. And there's no right way that I would be able to. And well, actually, there was a point where we got swept up in it, where we got signed, and there was a lot happening. And actually, like, just in my personal life as well, like, we moved house, and there was just tons happening, and we were getting married. And genuinely, it just felt like everything was shifting. All the pillars were in me. And I remember at that time, it was a struggle because you have to be, people are talking to you and you have to almost be somewhat professional and stuff like that. And it's actually quite hard sometimes to be, especially if you've got a vibe that's maybe energetic or optimistic. You can't keep that up every day, you know what I mean? Especially if you're on tour. I always have this thing of like, see if you bumped into us at the service station on the way up on a 9-hour drive, right? See, if you bumped into us at the start, you'd be like, they're terrible. They are the worst people. If you bumped into us at the end, you'd be like, best band ever. Because and I feel like that with social media is that you have to watch, because sometimes you're not always going to be 100% in every category. And I think sometimes with that, the other side of it is don't get too involved in it.
Yeah.
Because actually some people make it their lives, and actually every aspect of their life is then available. And that's hard, because then you can't separate your successes from the band's successes. And that's a really key point for us that I think we've all learned, is that when it does get a little bit much, just take a wee step back. Just focus on why you're doing it. You're making music.
Yeah.
Enjoy it.
We spoke about, you're talking about ticking things off. What do you want to tick off next? I know you've got New York, you want to do some more European gigs. What else? Is there a certain band or producer you want to work with? Is there a festival you would like to be involved with?
venue behind us. So
Oh, Barrowlands.
Barrowlands,
Barras.
has to be.
Monday.
So sold out Barras
Uh,
would be, I think, for us as a band, would be a real pinnacle into what we've been trying to achieve.
Let's think about it then, right? Dictator, the Barrowlands, who supports you? Who would you choose as the headline band to support?
You two boys with the podcast. We give a football before it. By that point, I don't know, 5 names on that. No, to be fair, I think, see, for us, it would be people, I wouldn't want to get like your dream support. PG Chaleta, for instance, if he was up for it, we'd have him in a heartbeat. And not as a let's support him, just as a he's a pal of ours and we really respect what he's doing, and it would be a lot more aligned with that. Bands who have helped us, Mark Sharp and the Bicycle Thieves, they helped us when they had no need to, because we were friendly with them, and I'd played the keys for them a couple of times. Bands like that is who we would love to come and just be part of something as big as that. Obviously, we wouldn't stop there. Love to play Glastonbury. That'd be a dream festival slot for us to go and play. We managed to play Isle of Wight this year, which again was another notch where you go like, boys, this is surreal.
Who else was there, Michael?
What, in Isle of Wight?
On the bill, aye.
S Club 7.
S Club 7.
It was S Club 7.
Can't believe you used them as the first band.
Pet Shop Boys. The Pet
Was the
Shop
Pet Shop Boys there, yeah?
Eventually headlined.
I seen them in Edinburgh years ago.
What's the
The
first?
Airy Wallopers.
Devon. Have you ever played down in Devon?
Devon.
I think it's called the Love Festival.
No, I've never heard of that one. But there's, we'll check it out.
The rapper, what's the rapper guy? Lockie,
Lockie.
is it Lockie?
Darren Thingy.
No.
You think Dan McGarvey?
No. He's dead big on X, and he's does a lot of rapping. He's big on Palestine and all that. Black guy. Oh, for God's sake.
Did he
you
do,
remind
did he do
remember
that live stream
camping?
gig? He was
Aye.
at the forefront of that.
Yes, that's
Yeah, I
right.
know you're on.
That's right.
Yep.
That's
He
right.
was he headlining at the...
He was headlining down in well, no, he wasn't. What he was there, but he wasn't headlining. It was who's the guy's never gonna give you right, Astley. He was headlining down there. So it was a lovely festival. I'm mentioning it because it's a lovely part of the world.
Listen, festivals are
It's a
amazing.
lovely part of the world, and it's some fantastic stages. It was really, really well run. You know.
You know, it's amazing getting behind stage in some of these things and seeing how the little network of roads work. Biggest, the most we've ever felt like big, or like you've made it. Is it Isle of Wight? They had the wee golf buggies and they stuck traffic and wheel you across the...
You've arrived. You've arrived.
All you could see was people staring at you going like, who's that? Who is that? I've never seen them before in a life. As we were on the way to the tiniest wee stage. But it was amazing. It was you had all your equipment and all that. The Mary Wallopers, we love the Mary Wallopers, and actually that was one band doing at Isle of Wight I wanted to see. And I remember they stuffed all their stuff. All you seen was this Scooby-Doo van, right? Coming round the back. It was this old, decrepit, yellow van that looked like the Scooby-Doo Mystery Machine. And I just remember there was a boy with his face out like that. And I was like, that's that boy from Mary Wallopers. And I was like, wait, that was a really good suit. And he went, right, yeah. And just sped up the wrong way and drove away. And I was like, I'm 90% sure. And it was there. They were in their wee van and away they went, got the ferry and left. And I was like, I just love that.
You know who introduced me to them? Here's a name drop. Brian McClure, Chalky.
Really?
And it was a song they did that was a Hamish Imlach song called Liver Oil and the Orange Juice.
That was my first introduction to them.
Yeah.
And I didn't know he'd sung it. So I thought it was them, because in the folk community, they just cover songs and say it's like this. So I heard his version, and I was and the reason I know is because they call it Brigton. And I was like, why is an Irish band saying all the way from Brigton? And I was like, why did they say it like that? That's why.
Brilliant, yeah. And he used to play gigs, back in the day where you had Malky McCormick and Billy Connolly and all these guys out playing folk music.
Aye.
And he was part of that scene. Lads, all your links. You might not want to sell the merch and the music and the tickets. We will. We'll put the links under the video. Once you've done everything that you've been talking about, will you come back and join us again?
100%. Hopefully we're headlining the Barras that week, and that would be a good time to tie it in.
We'll be
A
there.
couple of years' time.
I'm going to get my footballs.
That sounds good. Well, I would do what to play. You're a shark.
I think us two could take the two.
Yeah. I'm working. That dodgy elbow of mine.
We've got Oscar Flatters, that's it.
Thanks for joining us again on a Celtic State of Mind.
Guys. Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks again for joining us with Michael and Joe from Dictator. Join us again next Friday night at 6 o'clock for This is a Celtic State of Mind.